Welcome back. I'm Charles Lewis, the Austin area realtor who brings you topics and discussions that will help you make better decisions when you buy, sell, or invest in real estate. Today, I'm going to help you answer the question that everybody is asking right now. Is now a good time to buy a house in the Austin area, or would you be better off if you waited? You know, we are constantly bombarded with news stories, theories, and forecasts about what's going on in both the economy and the housing market. And everybody, and I mean everybody, has an opinion about what's causing all of it and what we can expect moving forward. What I want to do is filter through all that noise and break down the information that you need to know so that you can make a good decision for yourself and your family. And if you stick around for this video, I'm going to tell you all about it. So let's start with this. What are some of the reasons why it might make sense to wait before buying a house in the Austin area? Well, the first one that comes to mind are the prices on homes. If you haven't been looking for a house in the last 2 or 3 years, you may not realize how much things have changed in a very short period of time. Let me give you a real-life example. In early 2021, I had a client who was looking for a home in the Leander area, which is north of the city of Austin. Now, none of us knew what was going on at the time, but let me try to describe some of the experiences we had. We decided we were going to attend an open house. It was scheduled between 6 and 8 on a Thursday night. We got there just before 6, and the entire street was lined with cars. Now, the agent who was holding the open house just opened the door and let everybody in. There must have been 50 people inside that 1,800 square foot house that night. Now, the next day, I remember calling builders in the area to set up appointments to tour their model home, and every single one of them told me they were sold out. I remember thinking, how can you be sold out of houses? You're a builder. Can't you just build more? Well, the next day we got very lucky. We walked into the sales office of a builder in North Leander as soon as they opened. That day, the builder had just released 2 houses, and since my clients were the first ones there, they were given the option to buy either one of them for the list price. Now, that builder probably didn't realize that every other builder in the entire Austin metro was sold out and had already started putting together wait lists. My clients chose the larger of the 2 houses, which was a 2,000 square foot, 2-story, with 4 bedrooms and a study. The contract price on that house was $350,000. I'm telling you this because I'm going to use that price as a reference point. Over the course of the next several months, the housing market went completely insane. It was common practice for someone to list a house for sale on a Thursday and by Monday morning have 20 to 30 offers, and almost all of them would be over the list price. Most builders started implementing a bidding process. The way that worked was the builder would release 2 to 5 houses and open it up for bids. Whichever buyer was willing to pay the most for the house was able to buy it. Now, the most common question I got from the buyers I worked with that year was, how much over list price do you think we need to be in order to get the house? Buyers waived inspections. They paid sellers' closing costs. They literally became willing to do just about anything just to get a house. Several of the buyers I worked with that year completely lost hope after several tries. When they found a house they liked, we would submit the offer, and they got outbid. Now, after doing that 3 to 5 times, most times buyers just gave up. It truly was a buyer frenzy, and all of this drove huge price run-ups across the metro. Well, actually across the entire country. Coming back to that house in Leander I wanted to use as a reference point. That builder was one of the few who didn't have bidding on available houses. But even though they didn't have a bidding process, they did raise their prices. A comparable house got up to around $500,000, which is almost a 50% increase over the $350,000. Now, early in 2022, mortgage rates shot up and buyers disappeared. They canceled contracts, and the builders started to have unsold inventory homes, which were homes that were already built, but the original buyer backed out. I just got an email from that same builder out in Leander about a week ago, and a comparable house to the one I was using as a reference point was listed for $380,000 plus cash available to either buy down the interest rate or apply directly to the price of the house. Now, when you add all that together, the price that builder was offering that house for sale was almost what it was 2 years ago. The percentages might be different in different areas across the metro, but this example does illustrate that the current trend is that home prices are coming down. If we look at the median price across the entire Austin Round Rock metro, in March 2020 it was $335,000, and by March of 2022 it had increased to $521,000. But by November of 2022, it had declined to $467,000, which is still higher than it was at the start of the pandemic, but much lower than it was before the interest rates started going up. Now, also worth noting is there was 1,000 less transactions in November than there were back in March. So if you've decided to delay purchasing a home because you're waiting for prices to come down, well, that's already happening. But you might be thinking that if they're coming down now, maybe they'll come down even more in 2023. After all, the Federal Reserve is still raising interest rates to combat inflation. There are headlines almost every day about planned layoffs at major companies. And what if the economy does slip into a recession? Now, all of that might happen. But another thing you should take into account is there is still a shortage of homes when compared to the number of people who might want to buy them. Over the next 5 years, there are going to be over 4 million people turning 30 years old every single year. When you consider that there are only about 1 million homes built every year in the United States, that could mean that a lot of those people aren't going to be able to find a house to buy. Or like we've seen over the last couple of years, when demand is higher than the supply, we could see another round of run-ups if all of those people decided to go shopping at the same time and they started bidding against each other. Those numbers are for the entire United States. When we focus on Austin or even the entire state of Texas, we see some very positive things going on in the economy, but those upbeat economic statistics may actually work against you if you're in the market to buy a house. Austin ranks number 2 in the country for job growth since the pandemic, behind only Dallas. Now, this is good news for the Austin economy because these tend to be high-paying jobs. The bad news is if you're waiting to buy a home, these are the people you may be competing against. And if they have more money than you do, you are probably going to get outbid. This graph breaks down the counties in the United States that have experienced the highest rate of growth over the last 10 years. The darker the green, the higher the amount of growth. You'll notice that this golden triangle in Texas, from Houston to San Antonio and then up to Austin and Dallas, is one of the highest concentrations of green counties in the entire country, which means there are significantly more people here than there were 10 years ago, and they're still coming. So we can assume that the demand for housing is not going to slow down anytime soon. The final reason you might think you should delay purchasing a home are the current mortgage rates. Now, you might be thinking that if you wait, those rates are going to come down, and then you're going to be able to increase your buying power. We started 2022 at 3%. Rates shot up to over 7%, and over the last month or so, they've come down to around 6%. Now, although the Federal Reserve rates don't directly set mortgage rates, they do impact them. You'll notice that mortgage rates have never been lower than the federal funds rate. And if the Federal Reserve is now targeting a rate over 5% in 2023, the question then becomes, do you really think that for the first time in history, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate will be lower than the federal rate? Now, to sum up, there are a lot of factors that will influence your decision whether you should buy a house now or wait. But let me ask you this. Do you day trade with the funds in your retirement account? Probably not, right? Well, if you understand the concept of a long-term approach to investing in your retirement account, where you're able to even out the peaks and valleys because the investment is held for a longer period of time, if you can execute that strategy for those investments, why would you adopt a short-term mindset when it comes to buying a house? Do you really think it's possible to time the housing market? The way it usually works is nobody is aware a shift is taking place until after it's already happened. And at that point, everybody starts reacting to something that has already happened. If you adopted a more long-term view on your real estate purchase, you will probably discover that the best time to buy is when you're ready to buy, regardless of what the market is doing or what everybody thinks is going to happen in the future. I get emails, texts, and phone calls almost every day from people who are thinking about buying or selling real estate here in the Austin area, and I'd love to help you out too. If you like this video, you should check out this other one that I did. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. All of my contact information is in the video description, so don't be shy. Let's make your real estate dreams come true.